pals, and welcome back to another Let's Talk video. So today, like the title says, we are going to talk employment, and I'm really excited about this because of just like life circumstances right now, since I just recently got a job. Well, by the time this goes up, I probably will have had the job for like a month and a half to 2 months, so it's not that recent, but it's recent enough. So in today's video, we are going to talk about resumes. We're going to talk about applications, interviews, internships, full-time positions, part-time, entry-level. I don't really have above entry-level positions because I'm only 21. But yeah, that's the gist. So basically, I'm going to go through like my timeline of employment and then have my little nuggets of like advice and experiences and like wisdom to give you guys. So I hope you guys enjoy it. So the first thing I ever did as a job was I was a nanny. And before anybody says that is not a real job, if you are a nanny or a babysitter or a child care provider, I don't know what the other names could be, but if you have ever been in that position, you know. And if you were a good one, let's just say that. If you're a bad one, then no, like, it's not a real job if you did absolutely nothing. But for me, I was babysitting kids from the ages like 1 to 9, 10-ish. Sometimes there was a baby involved too. But I babysat for this family when I was like 15 or 16. No, I must have been 16 or 17, I guess. So basically at church, I was in a small group, and right before I think the summer started, my cell group leader, she was like, does anybody need a job for the summer? I need a babysitter. And then I was like, yes, I'll do it. And then at the time, her kids were pretty young. They were like maybe 1 year old, 5, and 6, and then now she has a 4th kid. But so those were the ages to start with. And for me, I always wanted to be doing something like creative and not have them just sit in front of the TV all day, because I feel like that first summer I worked like 6:30 to like 3:30 or something like that. And then like as the years progressed, it changed to like 7 to 4, 7 to 5, 7 to 3, 6:30 to 4, I don't know. Kind of just varied. Some days it was like half days, kind of just depended. And I worked either 4 days a week or 3 days a week, and so it was like a part-time job. So I would always like plan fun things to do, so I feel like I was like some sort of event planner for little kids. That's what they should call them. You're a kid's event planner. Like, that would be fun. That should be the fun title. Anyway, so yeah, I would like plan little outings for us. We go to the park, we go to the splash pad. Sometimes we drive an hour and a half away within my state, and we'd go do super fun stuff, which looking back, I'm so grateful like I had the freedom to go do that, because we had such fun times. Like, my favorite thing, I'm going off on a tangent, my favorite thing that we ever did, well, I have a couple, but we went to this, like, I'm sure they have them in different places, but it was like an hour away from my city. It was just like this building, this little building, and it had like all these different activities for kids to do and pretend that they were an adult working in different things. So they had like a doctor's office, a pizza parlor, like a tree house person, I don't know. It was just super fun. That was awesome. So yeah, that's real work. Like, kudos to you moms. Also, side note, if you're babysitting, that is preparing you to be a mother. So I feel I'm definitely not ready to be a mom right now, but I feel a lot more prepared because I know more how I'd like to raise my kids and how not to raise my kids. But yeah, nannying's a real job, guys. So that was my first piece of working, and so I did that for a couple years. And then the last year that I babysat for them, I also had an internship. So this was the first time I ever interviewed like officially for a position, I should say for a job, because I interviewed for my chaplain position, which I think I had either just gotten to be a chaplain and I was going to be a chaplain in the fall, or I'd already been a chaplain for the year, I can't remember. And then I had like interviewed for various things throughout the years. So this was my first like official interview for a job, and I was freaking out, guys. I did not know what to expect at all, which I think is normal. I was probably, was I 18 or no, I was 19 years old, And so, I mean, that's not super young. I feel like I should definitely have been more educated, but I just really knew nothing. I had only had 1 year of advertising classes. So I had my freshman year and I was not an advertising major. I was just undeclared, taking like primary classes like humanities and stuff like that. And then I had just completed my sophomore year, and so I had 1 year of advertising classes, which they were so beginner that year that I was just like, I know absolutely nothing. So I went into that interview and it was in front of 3 people, and I was like, okay, we're gonna do this. I'm not gonna be nervous. Of course I was nervous. And the interview, I feel like, went pretty well. They asked me a kind of an oddball question at the end. They asked me what would I do if I was on my Titanic and I knew it was going down? And I said, I think I would just pray and then go meet Jesus. And they were like, fair enough. So yeah, anyway, I ended up getting the position, and I worked there over the summer, Mondays and Fridays, for about 10 to 12 hours a week. So I did that, and then I babysat Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So that summer I feel like I worked, I guess it could still be part-time because it was just like 5 hours on Mondays and Fridays, and then like the whole day, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. But it was a lot of hours still. And then I think I was also taking an online class that summer maybe. So I mean, it was a busy summer, and I was traveling and I was having fun too, so it was busy. And something I found at this internship, so since I knew nothing, they placed me in front of this computer at a desk and they gave me assignments, because that's pretty much what an internship is. So I never wanted to ask questions because I felt like I was just a burden, like I was just bugging them. But I made myself ask questions because otherwise I would have just been sitting in front of the monitor like, I don't know what I'm doing. So I would ask questions, but I hated doing it, and I had to learn that, like, you know, they hired me to be their intern for this summer. Like, they want me there to help them do their work, but they also want to provide a good experience for me. Like, I've been so blessed with every position I've had to work with some incredible people that they really are on your team. They want to help you. So I just want to give that piece of advice to you guys. Like, if you're applying for internships, if you're applying for fellowships, full-time, part-time jobs, whatever it may be, like, these people, they're hiring you because they need you. They need to fill this position. They need your help. So when you're learning all of this stuff, if you're in training and all that stuff, ask questions. Like, don't just try to figure it out on your own. Like, some things, yes, you can be like, okay, I'm gonna be able to figure this out. I can Google it, or I can just brainstorm and figure it out myself. But if it's like logistical things, like, I don't know how to use this database, I need someone to walk through it with me once or twice to figure it out, do it. It'll make your life so much easier. It'll make their life easier because they know that they can trust you because you're asking questions. It's just kind of a win-win when you ask questions. So that's a good, helpful tip for you guys. The next thing that I did in my employment journey was I had a part-time job at my university. So the summer before my junior to senior year, it was my 3rd year, I was connected with this lady. Before I actually had my job, I applied for, I think, 2 other jobs, but both of them got filled before when I followed up, they had already been filled. So I was like, well, that's a bummer. But then the Lord helped me out, and I got connected with this lady, and I just went in to talk with her, and she was like, yes, I'll hire you. I would love to have you work with me. So I did a lot of very different things for this job. So basically, I was like a student office manager. So I sat in an office for a set amount of time throughout the week. It varied because of my classes, and I did that so I could help check out cameras from our little lab area, and then also to just help like maintain and upkeep the office, like vacuum, take out the trash, stuff like that. And then I also built our advertisers that worked with our campus newspaper, so I made sure that they were paying us and stuff like that, and keeping track of that. And then I also, a big portion of this was every other week or every 3rd week, I would go 30 minutes away and I would pick up the newspapers at this little newsprint place and then I would drive back 30 minutes, so it was an hour in total, and then I would put them in the bin and put them in the room. I'm picturing it all. And then the next day after chapel, I would distribute all these newspapers all over campus, which was my absolute least favorite part of the job, because I decided instead of pushing a cart, because my university is like super windy, there's like no straight paths anywhere, I was like, this is just ridiculous how long it's taking me. And even though looking back on it now, I got paid by the hour, but I still wanted to be efficient, and like I also wanted to be able to go, this was on Fridays, like afternoon, so I wanted to be able to go have fun, you know, and do homework or go home and hang out with my family, whatever I wanted. So I wanted to get it done like relatively quickly. I think it took me about an hour to do this. At the beginning it took maybe an hour and a half to 2 hours or something like that, because my campus isn't huge, but walking around everywhere it takes a while. So yeah, so I just decided to put on a backpack and fill that backpack up with newspapers, and then hold like a ton so I could just go up and down the stairs and I didn't have to wait on the elevators and stuff like that. So I always got my Friday workout in. But yeah, that was not fun, just because I would always walk around and like everyone was just hanging out, so everyone saw me and I was just a little bit humiliated, let's be real. So anyway, that was part of my job. So what I learned in this position was just to go with everything, like just go with the flow. If someone throws a task your way, just like do it, like try it out. I mean, you might not enjoy it, but I mean, it's your job. I also learned to be very grateful and happy where I am. So this position was not like some exciting role. Like, I was grateful to have a job that paid me while I was still in school, which every college student knows. If you're having to pay for your tuition, if you're having to pay for books, if you're having to pay for transportation, whatever it may be, like, it's nice to have that little bit of money. And also it's fun to have just like if you want to go see a movie or something. So that was nice. But I also got to empathize with the minimum wage class, because I was making squat. Looking back on it now, like getting paid for babysitting, I was barely getting paid anything. Like back then, since I had never received any sort of income, that was like a ton of money to me. Then moving on and doing this job with all the variety of tasks, I was just grateful to be saving stuff up, because that was like my purpose of having a job, was to be able to, I'm always like a forward thinker when it comes to finances, because ever since I was like in 12th grade, ever since I was 12, I've always gone on mission trips. So every single year, I don't know what it is about me, it's just my personality. At my birthday and at Christmas, when I'd be given money, I would save, and then when I got to my mission trip, I would put it all into my missions account every single year. So I feel like for me, I'm always just thinking about like, I'm gonna need money for this, so I'm not gonna spend it now. So I was thinking, once I graduate, I'm gonna want some cushion, because if I can't find a job, or if I'm trying to move into an apartment and I have to pay 3 months up front or something like that, I'm gonna wanna have some money saved up so I can do that. Now thinking about it, I am grateful because I saved up for my mission trips as well, because I went on them every year at my school. And now for the world race, I'm trying to save money for that, and I'm also trying to save money for when I come back from the world race. just a tidbit of like I don't know, some encouragement for you guys. Like, if you feel like, man, I'm doing some really hard work here, or it's just a lot of hours for really little income, it's okay, because that little amount, if you save and save and save, it becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. So I just wanted to encourage you guys, I don't know, just be smart with your money. I know we all have different expenses and different lifestyles and stuff like that, so yeah. So the next thing that I did in my employment journey was I applied for internships for class credit. So at my school we have to have one semester where we have internship class. So we go to class, for me it was like Wednesdays at 7:50 we'd go, and we talked a lot about negotiation and what to expect in job interviews. It was really awesome because we had guest speakers come in and tell us, like, from their point of view when they're interviewing people, what they're looking for, typical interview questions, stuff like that. So it was super helpful advice, and then it helped us like fine-tune our resumes, cover letters, all that good stuff. We made LinkedIn profiles, stuff like that. So before this class started, we were supposed to have an internship like secured. So I really wanted to work in the healthcare industry. I think I've mentioned this before in a video. And so I was so adamant about doing this. So I looked at pretty much all of our hospitals in town and I tried to find internships. I saw that there was one internship over the summer at this hospital, but they didn't have fall or spring ones. It was a new program basically. So what I did, sometimes you guys gotta be creative. This is like my next point, I guess. Sometimes you gotta like think out of the box. So for me, since there's not like marketing healthcare internships, I went straight to the marketing departments in the hospitals and I reached out to them through email or phone call and said, hey, so this is my situation. I really want to gain experience in this field. Do you have any opportunities? And basically I got said no. They're like, sorry, we don't have any. But my advisor, also super helpful. If you have someone that's over you that like is trying to help you, ask them if they have any connections in the place that you want to go. That's what I said. I was like, I'm really looking to get into the healthcare industry just to test out like how advertising and marketing works in that field. And she was like, okay, I know somebody. So we connected. I met her in person. I went to one of the meetings. She was actually over for PRSA. So we met and it looked pretty promising, but they were like moving buildings, so they were in a time of transition. So like all the paperwork and HR stuff that had to be done couldn't be done before I needed to start my job. So I had to say goodbye to that and I had to let go of the idea of working in the healthcare field as my internship. So my advisor told me that I should talk to this person at a news station, and immediately I was like, I do not want to work at a news station. Like, that's just not something I could ever see myself doing. So why would I want to work somewhere and get that experience if I know I'm not gonna want to work there? Like, that just didn't make sense. But I was kind of needing a job, so I went ahead and I interviewed with her, and she was super awesome, and I got hired on, and so I worked at a news station for a semester. But because I ended up working there, along the way I had pulled all of these people in and built a network. So even though I didn't get a position in the healthcare industry, I still have connections now. I was thinking about it earlier and I thought, oh, I just have two. The person that I thought I was going to intern for, and the one I actually went and she gave me a tour of their building and just kind of explained what she does, and she was super awesome. But she actually introduced me to like 4 people, so now I know a huge group of people at this one hospital. And then I also got to meet PR professionals at the meeting I went to that with the lady that I thought I was going to intern for. So it was cool how like through the whole process, even if you're just applying for jobs and you don't get it, but you go to the interview and you make that connection and they think, well, your skill set might not fit us right now, but we'll refer you to someone else or something. I don't know. You can always, you just have them in your back pocket. Like connect with them on LinkedIn, connect with them on whatever other business sites there are. Like, you're stringing together your little web of connections along the way until you reach your actual job, and then it just continues. So don't be afraid of networking. I don't like it, but I mean, every time I like put myself out there, it's never just been like, no one's ever just been like, I don't want to talk to you, kind of like they don't put you down. Like, I don't know if it's the area I live in, but everyone's been super helpful and encouraging, even if they don't have a position for me, if that makes sense. So anyway, I worked in the news field for about 5 months, and guys, it was awesome. I learned that I love doing events. So a lot of what I did was like prepping for events, like physical labor. Like I was saying, how, I think I said this in a video also, because I worked at a news station, I was down in the dungeon, I was rolling up t-shirts and putting rubber bands around them for an event. I was listening to a podcast and she talked about the world race, and it prompted me to look it up again, and then that's when I was like, okay, I'm gonna pull the trigger and we're gonna go for it. So because I did that, like, it's cool how the Lord just like works through everything. So yeah, you never know. Like, the main thing for me was just like, sometimes my expectations are so wrong, and I learned, I think, more than I could have if I was in the healthcare profession. So that's pretty awesome, because now I have those connections. If I wanted to, I could ask like, hey, do you know anyone know any hospital, know any place that has an opening. And if I want to work at the news station, or if I want, like, working at a news station, you get to meet a ton of people, guys, and work with a ton of organizations. And for me, I wanted to work with nonprofits, which is so cool because we did a lot of work with nonprofits, like setting up giveaways and stuff for them. So that was super cool. So yeah, basically my expectations were wrong and I went for it. Sometimes you gotta try new things, guys. You just gotta go for it. Something that I learned is just because you say yes to a position does not mean it is your life's destiny. You do not have to stay there. It is not permanent. And also, when you're interviewing, it goes both ways. As much as they are trying to see if you are a fit for their company, you are trying to see if they are a good fit for you. If that's gonna be your boss that you're interviewing for and you think they are just the absolute worst, you do not have to work there. You can say no if they offer you a position. You can be like, I'm sorry, but I just don't think that this company's culture is necessarily the right place for me. Like, you don't have to be rude about it, but like you can say no, guys. It's not like you have to say yes. I mean, if you need a job, yes, say yes, because like I said, this position does not have to be your lifelong career. You can stay there for a year. You could, because like they say, you can do anything for a year, or you could stay there for a couple years until you are doing your side hustle, or you can figure out your next career move, or you can network a little bit. I just want to encourage you guys that, like, just because you say yes doesn't mean you can't say no later. Like, you can resign. Okay, so now moving on to my current job. I talked about this in my first vlog of this new year, how I got that job. So basically, I manage the office, I schedule interviews with our candidates, I run our social media, I just do stuff like that. And it's pretty good. Like, I love it for an entry-level job, and I'll work in this position until mid to end April. What I learned from this experience of applying, so I'm gonna kind of reiterate what I said in that first vlog, is I decided one weekend, I kind of put it off for like a week and a half to apply for jobs once I graduated. Like, okay, it had been like a month since I graduated, but it was Christmas time and we went out of town, so I didn't want to apply while we were gone. So when I came back, I waited like a week and a half, and then I applied for like 5 jobs. And I really didn't want to apply, but then once I applied within 2 days, my friend connected me with this, and then I eventually got the job like within a matter of a day or two. And so the first thing that I learned is it's okay to be rejected. So after I got hired on the job, this is just funny, there was someone that called me for a position that seemed really like they wanted to hire me. And since I had already been hired, I was like, well, I can't do that now. And then there's other people that were like, we don't have this position for you at this time. So with that, I want to encourage you guys, like, the Lord knows what's best for you. And just because a ton of people might say no and you might apply hundreds of places, someone is gonna say yes, because the Lord is working on your behalf. And it was just so evident in this portion of my life, because I was like, okay, and five applications is not that much, but I thought it was like a huge step of faith. Like, okay, I'm going to apply, I'm going to have to argue that this is going to be like a fellowship or a temp job, and then I apply, and then it's like, it just fell in my lap, like, here, Bailey, go and do this and be fruitful and multiply. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, it's like the Lord has your best interest in mind. So sometimes it just takes, at church sometimes we say, like, it just takes a step, like it's motion activated faith, you know, like you take a step and then the Lord's like, you know, I'm gonna show up for you, fam, because you're awesome. I mean, he always shows up for us regardless if we take a step, but sometimes we need to take a step, guys. The second thing I learned, very practical, always bring a resume. So basically, I had a phone interview with one of my co-workers now, the night before I went in to meet her, and this always happens to me. I think I may or may not have already said this, but if someone is calling you on the phone, and it could be your potential boss, it is a phone interview. Like, I don't know why I can't get that through my head, because it has happened to me 2 or 3 times now, which is ridiculous. I would think that I would know. Anyway, so I call her and she automatically was like, Bailey, and like she was looking for my call because they were really needing someone to fill this position because she was going into labor any day. So I basically had an interview with her on the phone, and then the next morning I made sure to print out a resume and bring it with me, and I really thought she wasn't gonna ask me for one because she pretty much had offered me the job on the phone, but she kind of had like a follow-up interview, I'll call it, and then towards the end of our little discussion, she was like, oh, do you happen to have a resume? And I was like, yes, I do. And I feel like when you come prepared, regardless if they ask it or not, it just sends good vibes. Like, this person knows what they're doing. Like, they're informed, they know how this works. Like, guys, just come prepared. Bring your resume, bring your cover letter, bring recommendations, bring whatever you have, whatever material. Sometimes you need to bring, like, if you're applying for videography, bring some of your work to just showcase, because sometimes they'll just ask you, and it's not gonna hurt to be prepared and them not ask, you know. So I'm gonna talk about like resumes, cover letters, and all that stuff at the end, because that's very practical and I want to talk about that. But the next thing that kind of just reiterated what I had already learned was, when you are in training, because this was my first full-time position, I'm working 39 hours a week, which is kind of annoying because I always just say 40. Oh my gosh, look how red my forehead is. I think that was when I did my face palm. Anyway, so yeah, so I'm working full-time now. So I had training for about a day total. It was one morning and then the next one morning, so combined it was one day, and then the person went into labor and training was over. So I pretty much, I mean, she taught me a lot. Like, I felt very equipped to step into this position. But I had a lot of questions, as you know, like when you're watching someone do it and then you do it, it's just kind of different. Like, you realize all the little things that you might have missed. So I asked a lot of questions, and I tried to be bold in asking these questions, and like also time it well. Like, if they're on a phone call, like, wait, you know, be good about it. But ask questions. And the next week, like halfway through the week, they were like, you're doing good, you're picking up on everything really fast. And I was like, well, you guys have been so helpful in answering all my questions. And they were like, well, we're glad you asked questions. We worry about the people that don't ask questions. So like I said before, it kind of establishes like that trust, because they know like you're really trying to do your job and do it well. So ask questions. And also something to go along with that is just always be willing to learn. There's a lot of different things that like I didn't know. So I'm working for like a recruiting place. If you ever heard of like ZipRecruiter, the little commercial, it's kind of what we do, but we specialize in like accounting and engineering. Sometimes I print out these resumes and they're 5 pages long. If we're going through a ton of resumes, like we go through probably at least 100 resumes a week. I would think. Maybe I'm overestimating or underestimating, I'm not really sure. We go through a ton of resumes. If we're going through that many, we do not want to spend a long time going through it. And if it's 5 pages, we're just gonna skim right through it, you know what I'm saying? So keep it to 1 page, and you need to like adjust it to each job that you're putting on. So if you're pretty much applying to the same position just at different places, it's okay to keep the same things. But like if I'm applying to a marketing job, I should put down my internship experiences and not necessarily, I mean, it's good to have my job that I had at my university, but it doesn't really showcase the skills that I learned because it didn't have anything to do with marketing, if you know what I'm saying. So definitely be strategic in how you do that. Also, people love when you include a little headshot, because then they know what to expect when you come in for an interview. So put your headshot at the top right corner, have your name on the other side of the paper, and for your headshot, please do not make it a selfie. Have someone take your picture in front of a white wall, a neutral background, outside with your face in focus, the background blurry. From here up, that's all you need. Boop, boop, that's it. That's all you need. You don't need to show anything else, and that will be good. Also, designs. You do not, I've learned this, you do not need fancy designs on your resume. If you keep it simple, especially because recruiters are using the little scan method now, like the big recruiting firm people, they are, or just companies in general, they just put it through and it scans for like keywords and stuff. So that leads me to another point, diction. You don't need to get all fancy with that. Like, sure, use some smart words, but you don't need to be lengthy, be concise, get to the point, showcase your experience. Just, I don't know, do your research and look at what people expect. If you're like a graphic design artist, like looking for jobs like that, then I think it's different because your resume should kind of showcase your abilities. But for the average Joe, I think you should keep it simple. It's the way to go. Okay, so for your cover letter, I think it kind of is the same thing. Have like a template for your resume and your cover letter. Have a couple different versions of it. Also, something my professor always told me, and I see it now in action, is when you save things like your cover letter and your resume, save it last name, first name, resume, or just last name, first name, or just your name, or your name and resume, something like that. Something simple, not like what I've seen is like resume with like 8 letters. Like, it's not as professional, if you know what I'm saying. Like, just put what it says. Anyway, so have like a template. So for your cover letter, it's basically telling your story. It's where you get to showcase your personality and just kind of the culture you'll bring to the team that you're working with. So you need to have it like, just like your resume, cater to what you're applying for. And you don't have to get crazy. It kind of depends. If you're like applying for a journalist position or writing position, now's your time to shine. But for everyone else, personality, man. Like, I don't know. I read some sample cover letters, and the ones that like had some humor, obviously keep it, don't use crude humor. That's just, why would you do that? But if you're like witty and funny, like, people will enjoy that. I'm just saying. So yeah, do have like a master copy or whatever, and then you can just suggest it for every job that you're at. Okay, so then one of my biggest pieces of advice is follow up. Sometimes they have a stack of resumes they have not gotten to. You pick up the phone, you call their HR department. If you have no contact, call the HR department and say, hey, I sent out my resume yesterday, last week, over the weekend, whatever. I just wanted to make sure that I was there and follow up. They appreciate that. Some people will write it down and note that. It's important. Moving on to my next piece of advice. If you are going into an interview, show up early. I don't understand why people cannot get that through their mind. Show up 15 minutes before. I don't care if you sit in the parking lot. If you're half an hour early, sit in your parking lot, listen to some worship music, listen to some pump up music, listen to a podcast, but do not be late for that interview, and be in the building 10 minutes early. Also, piece of advice, if you walk in and there's a secretary or someone that greets you, whatever it may be, learn their name, say their name. When you're saying goodbye, say goodbye, Bailey. Like, it means a lot. Like, they're picking up on little things. Like, sometimes we're like, yeah, it doesn't matter, but other times I'm like, wow, I was really impressed because they said goodbye to me. Like, it's impressive, guys. Like, just do it. Anyway, that was just a little tidbit. So my last little pieces of advice are to be prepared for your interview. So Google is a major resource. It is on your team. Like, Google typical interview questions, and then have a basic answer for it. Don't rehearse it so much that you sound like rehearsed when you're answering it, you know. And you also don't want to like pause if you've memorized something and you like memorized your line, and then halfway through you forget a word, and then you're like, I don't know what to say now. Like, make it conversational, you know. But definitely read those interview questions because it's helpful, and most people use the same interview questions. Some of those include, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Also, something I learned about when you're talking about your weaknesses doesn't necessarily mean qualities. It doesn't mean to say, I'm not trustworthy. You should never say that to your boss, but like, say for me, I'm like, since I'm a middle child, I'm indecisive. So that was like my thing that I would say is like, sometimes I can be indecisive. Sometimes they're just asking about skills. Like, I don't know Microsoft Word, or I don't know Adobe Acrobat, or whatever software, like, but I'm willing to learn. Like, always follow it up with a little, I'm willing to learn, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, sometimes it's just like specific skills that you can talk about, not necessarily qualities. Just kind of use discretion with that. But I thought that was helpful because I always thought it had to be like about me, like I'm not a kind person, you know, stuff like that. And then another thing that kind of goes along with that is argue for what you lack. So say a position, this is something helpful that my advisor taught us, is say a position is asking for 3 to 5 years experience, but you only have a year. Say, well, in this year that I've learned these skills, I've acquired this as well, and this is what I can contribute to your company. And then also, like, you can talk about, like for me, if I was talking about babysitting, I could say like, you know, I kind of learned to be a event planner for kids because I'd always blah 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 this. And that adds up to your experience, and they might even giggle at you. Like, I'm just saying, it kind of depends on the personality of your interviewer, but it's always nice to make them laugh. Okay, and then my last piece of advice for you guys is pretty much every interview ends with, do you have any questions for me? Always have a question. If you ask a question about some company, like ask, so what's the culture of your company? What's the atmosphere of your company? They will appreciate that. They'll be like, they're interested. They're very intrigued. They're very invested. Or if you go on their website and you see something that's interesting to you, like for me, for instance, I think I said like, for when I worked at the news station, I said, I'm really interested in nonprofits. Is there anything, any opportunities that you have that I would be able to work with and interact with nonprofits? The answer was yes, guys. So I don't know, I feel like having a question for your interviewer just so like gets them excited because, well, and it gets you excited because the tables have turned and you're interviewing them. But yeah, don't ask about like how much you're gonna get paid, time off, stuff like that, and that's big no. Definitely wait until they bring you back to have that little negotiation time. But ask about the company's culture. Ask about what their favorite thing about their job is. Ask a question. I think that it earns you some brownie points. I guess I could talk about, I thought I would be done, but I guess I could also talk about negotiating your salary. So that also goes with arguing your value. So you need to do some research for your market before you go in to, because sometimes they'll actually want you to negotiate salary when you're there so they don't have to bring you back. So I think it's good to do your market research and see like what is a good base salary for that, and then depending on your circumstances, like what you think you like, how much you're contributing, and then like entry level, all the different variables that are in there. Just have a rough estimate, because a lot of times they're gonna ask you first what you expect. And personally, for me, I would go a little bit above. Like, say you want to ask for 30,000. Like, we were taught in class, what's your walkaway point? So say your walkaway point is 30 grand. Ask for 35. Ask for 40 if you want to go big for entry level. I don't know. If you're a doctor, ask for a lot more than that. I don't know. But yeah, just like maybe a little bit above. I don't know. That's my personal preference. They might, I guess it depends how much above you're going, because they might think like, oh, you're very unrealistic about what you're gonna make. But I don't think it hurts to go like a grand or two above, because they're gonna counter offer usually, or if it works out in your favor, they'll be like, done, we'll give you that. Like, you never know. So those are my little tips and tricks. Search the market, see what an average salary would be, depending on if it's entry level, depending on if it's more executive level, you know, stuff like that. But okay, I think that's it. I've talked for a really long time. I hope some of what I've shared was helpful for you guys, and my experiences gave you relief that we all can do it, because I don't like interviews. It makes me nervous, and I don't like networking. But guys, I've done both of those things, and I've had lots of different jobs in all different types of capacities and fields and stuff like that. So if I can do it, you can do it. But yeah, this is gonna be the end of the video. So I hope you guys are having a great day, whatever day of the week it is, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye guys. Go get your dream job. Oh.